Okay, everyone, we're going to move into Python now. As you see here, I'm on a Mac terminal. You know that I'm in Bash right now because I have this Bash symbol. If you're on a Windows machine and you're on command prompt, you're going to have a different symbol than this. So that just tells me that I'm in Bash and Bash is waiting for commands. Terminal users will also realize or notice this tilde here. That's the name of that squiggly line. That means I'm in my default home directory. That doesn't matter at the moment, but it will matter soon. So I'm going to remind you about what that is every time we get here, okay? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to hop into Python. Here we are. We know that we're on Python 3.6.5. Remember, try and be in Python 3 for this class. At least Python 3. So the first thing we're doing is we want to assign a variable, a string variable. So we are going to assign the string variable, first string, we're just going to call it fs for now because it's easier to type. I'll do a simple one first. Now, actually, let's do single quotations to show you that that works. So remember, in order to create a variable, we have to first name our variable, use the assignment operator, and then pass the variable, the value that we want to store in that variable. To tell Python that this is a string, we give it quotations, either single or double. Okay, there we go, and it seems to have worked because we haven't received an error. Let's check type. It is indeed a string. So one function I'm going to teach you right now is the print function. What this function does is it will print to like console logs and output information when you want it to. In Python, we also use this function for saving to text or out files basically. But for now, it is used to show an actual representation of what a string is without the special character stuff that we talked about. So there's print there. If I do just fs, you notice that they're slightly different because this contains those double quotations. I'll show you what that means, why that's important in a moment. So now let's make our string a little bit more complicated. Let's make it what it was before. I'm going to use single quotes still here. Science. We're going to use double quotes in here and also have that in there. Rules. And we'll add some numbers or something. Oh, yeah, and we also want to put that in there and make it a little strange to show you all of the different features that are going on here. So when we put this in, that actually does work. It didn't error out. What happens if we remove this special character here? It does error, and it tells us, okay, well, I thought this was a string, but Python is saying it's getting confused by what this whole mess is. It has no idea what that is. So it's saying syntax error. There's something wrong with how you wrote this line. So that is the power of the special characters and escape characters here. Even though you still see /n up top, it's going to do something when we print. And now that we have fixed this special character, it knows that it should just use its single quotation in the string. And that also these double quotations worked because it's wrapped in single quotations around that. So what happens when we print this then? So actually, it prints, it gives a line break, this is what I said that this /n was. This is a line break. Basically it means like, separates your text into a new line. We do that all the time when making paragraphs, let's say. Let me do this one, /t, and see how that comes out. And look, there's a tab here now. So what print does is it represents what the actual string is supposed to look like without all the special characters that Python is, using for its own interpretation. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you is functions and strings in Python. So because we have this data type called string, that's what this fs thing here is saying. It's a string type. We can go into our help menu and ask it for information on what we can do to strings. What are the default functions for the string command? And what ends up happening when we enter this in is it shows us that we have this thing called the string class, which is a default Python class. I'll tell you more about classes in a later section, but basically what I want you to get from this is I want you to ignore everything that has double underscores. Those are initialization functions. You can't actually use them. But what you can see here are these ones that don't have the double underscores. And what you're seeing here are all the different little functions that Python has already built for you that you can use for string analysis, basically. So the count function here is basically saying it will count the amount of times a specific string or pattern occurs within a specific string, and it gives like a bunch of other subparameters here. So you could use the dot function, symbol, and then the count in the parentheses, and you can call on this function to do that execution. Let's just scroll down a little bit more. I'm using my arrow keys for this right now, and let's look at dot lower. I tried that dot lower. Here it is here. So basically it says return a copy of a string s converted to lowercase. So that's what dot lower is going to do for us. There's all a bunch of other stuff. Maybe you'll see some of these in your chapter problem. I might ask you to look at a function that you might not have seen yet and do a specific task with string slicing. So be sure to know how to do this. Replace is something I use all the time, for instance. So to get out of this help menu, you just press Q, and let's now play around with these default functions in Python. So remember, the capital S means like that's your string variable, and then we go dot lower. Let's see what happens. Okay, so our string has now been lowercased. We can try dot upper. And it's been uppercase. Look at how all the characters have changed. The last one I'm going to show you here is fs.replace, and how replace works is you have to tell it what you want to remove from a string. So see here it says the old, like the substring old replaced by new. So let's replace rules. And then you have to give it a comma with the new string, which is awesome. Let's do that there, and let's see what happens. Okay, so instead, I had an extra period there, so look what it did. It replaced rules here with is awesome. Now remember that because I didn't save these as variables, when I ran these executions, I didn't store it as a variable. I just asked it to do this operation on the variable. So fs is still what I had up above with the equal sign operator. But with the replace function, see now it's back to rules. But with the replace function, you're able to replace specific words. So this is like a really basic introduction into how to do string slicing and play with data types and default functions in Python. So let's just do a recap, because this was a longer class. It was a two-parter, right, guys? So today, guys, we learned how to create strings. We learned about the importance of the syntax of a string with all those special characters and quotations. You learned how to do some operations on your strings. We did the lower and upper functions. We also did replace, and I taught you a little bit about print. Most important about that is you learned how to get through the help menu and start to investigate features for yourself without me. I'm really hoping that you learn how to find the information that you need in order to progress your coding without me. Because I can't teach you everything, and the way coders do this is they kind of eventually learn how to teach themselves. So I'm hoping that some of these tips are starting to connect with you so that you can become a better coder on your own. Lastly, we talked about some of the pitfalls and syntax issues with strings. We learned a little bit about indexing and formatting in the syntax section. And we also learned a little bit about, some pitfalls to deal with strings with. Okay, so with that said, guys, I'll see you in the next lecture.